The writer Kafka has a short story, I think, entitled The Burrow. He never names the animal that's talking. It's an animal. And the animal is obsessed with security. And so the security requires more and more complex labyrinthine burrows, connecting passages. He must go deeper, broader, with more escape routes, all of the rest. And finally, it becomes quite apparently a form of mental illness, with the animal left more anxious and not less by by its own insane logic. And we have decided that we must have a castle of safety with round corners and completely safe and nothing to harm us. And it's driving us mad.
Hello and welcome back to HLI Ireland's Let's Talk. This is the weekly show that looks at all things life, faith and family through a Catholic lens. I'm your host, Lisa O'Hare. And before I take a step further, I want you to press that like button and subscribe so that you could be part of the family and join the conversation. So we're continuing this month on our theme of men, and particularly men called to greatness. If you missed the first episode on this theme, check it out. It's Dr. Rob McNamara, a great guest. And this week we are following it up with another great guest. This is a man that needs no introduction. It is the one and only Father Brendan Kilcoyne. I'm so excited, Father. Thank you for joining us in the show.
Thank you. Not at all. Thank you for having me.
So anyone, I'm sure very many of our viewers are familiar with you on the Brendan Option by Immaculata Productions. Fabulous.
Yeah.
We missed the red chair today, Father, so we'll...
Yes, yes.
It's slightly different, but I'm still looking forward to hearing all your musing and obviously the amazing intellect that you bring and your observations of society. Yeah. And that's kind of why I wanted to bring you on to the show, because what I found on your show is that you're particularly good at pinpointing and observing what's going on around us in the culture and in the church. And you have a fabulous way of articulating it, bringing in all sorts of brilliant cultural references. So
yeah,
I'm just going to kick it off with a chat. I hope everybody's got a cup of tea, because that's how hopefully this will go like a chat. Father, what would be your sort of diagnosis, jumping straight in there, with men, particularly in Ireland here today, and the challenges that are facing them?
Okay. I don't regard it as hopeless or even an apocalyptic situation, but it is a very difficult, challenging situation. And one of the reasons, or one of the main reasons for that, is that we're in the middle of an absolutely enormous transition in human society and culture. Now, I mean, if you look at the male body, or you know anything about the male psyche, men are oriented towards a number of things, and a certain level, a certain kind of problem solving, an intense practicality, a capacity for abstraction related to that applied to that practicality, a powerful, all things being equal, quite a comparatively powerful physical build, a body that seems to be made for heavy labor and for fighting. And the male psyche, testosterone and everything, it can be, it can be quite aggressive. Young men particularly can be quite aggressive, and can get into a lot of scrapes because of their, I don't know, feeling of being immortal. They're, they get involved in car accidents and the like. They like speed, they like machines, whatever. Now you can say, well, I'm indulging in stereotypes, and of course the whole woke thing will just go ape if you start talking like this. But I mean, no sensible person of my acquaintance who knows anything of life, particularly people who've brought up boys and girls or have taught boys and girls, is going to disagree with me to any significant extent. There are very substantial differences. And when I say a capacity for abstract thinking in males, I'm not saying that to imply women are stupid or something. That would be completely just offensive nonsense. It's more a kind of a bias or an orientation a particular calibration towards being useful in particular ways, if that makes any sense. Now, the thing of it is that in the past, men were hunter-gatherers, they were warriors, and you can still see that, because, I mean, that doesn't change just because of a few hundred years of industrialization. You can still see that. And I remember, you know, I used to often remark that teaching boys, like, you know, you could see the warrior thing. You know, if there wasn't a war, so to speak, and games, remember, are ritual war. If there wasn't a war, they just sat around and did nothing, let the women work. Okay, you could see that. You could see that going on with them. And if you pointed it out to them, they'd die laughing, and they'd kind of agree with you. You know, if something had to get them going, and if it didn't, no, they'd take it handy. I think there is a crisis. It's not the end of the world. Okay, maybe it is. I don't think so. But it is a crisis, and of course, the proverbial crisis contains opportunity. So we've come through. All right, the whole warrior thing, you could say, and this is huge generalization. I accept that. The whole warrior thing was the whole hunter-gatherer thing. Obviously, that was transferred to, you know, to more structured farming and heavy labor plus warrior thing. Then really just heavy labor and occasional warrior thing. And then, you know, the industrialization, the crowding into the cities in the last 200 years. You had the male as the wage earner, bringing home the butter, as it were, you know, so that you still had this male, how would you put it, this male sense of providing a crucial leadership role in the family. And now that's passing, right? And like, we may be looking at a time that's coming with far less employment and much more leisure. And this has been talked about for quite a bit, but it's actually happening before our eyes. Now, there will be, you know, it's clear that there will be employment. But again, with artificial intelligence, we don't know how much of this stuff is going to be done by machines. I suppose let's say the entertainment industry and the services, hospitality industry. It's very hard to see how humans can be supplanted by machines there, because the whole thing is that you're looked after by humans. That's part of the thrill, the enjoyment of those things. But in a whole range of areas, robotic organization is increasingly replacing human beings, the assembly lines and what have you. So I mean, whether it's not just whether man, it's whether humanity, right? We have a huge discussion going on here, and it should be going on. It's not going on nearly enough. And then within that, we have this tremendous difference between male and female. So what will be the roles that they will play? Yeah.
Gosh, there's so much in that. I'm trying to write down we notes to think, right, where I'll take this, because you've touched on a few points that I'd love to get chatting to you about and love to sort of stew over with you, because, well, you're talking about you know, that whole hunter-gatherer and the whole idea of games. I think, like, looking on from my own perspective as well, I think a lot of that's been stripped away from men, particularly because of the kind of labor that they're in now. So many men are in desk jobs, and so many men don't have that full expression of that, you know, they're, like you say, almost their bodily function and how they're wired to be physical. And I think that's causing a huge issue for mental health of men. And I think as well, when you're talking about, you know, I love that, how the idea of games being like a ritual war, even that idea, like, I know the GA is talking about stripping away underage games from winners and losers, and everything's been sort of,
that's crazy,
sanitized, because no one can cope with victors, but yet that's what men need. Well, human beings need. We can, you know, look at all that as well. But I think all of these seem to hit men in particular. The change of labor and the idea of everyone being the same, and the idea, because all of their purpose is then taken away. And we know we have a huge crisis of mental health, particularly of young men.
The writer Kafka has a short story, I think, entitled The Burrow. He never names the animal that's talking. It's an animal. And the animal is obsessed with security. And so the security requires more and more complex labyrinthine burrows, connecting passages. He must go deeper, broader, with more escape routes, all of the rest. And finally, it becomes quite apparently a form of mental illness, with the animal left more anxious and not less by by its own insane logic. And we have decided that we must have a castle of safety with round corners and completely safe and nothing to harm us. And it's driving us mad, because the truth is that you cannot abolish tragedy. You can't abolish life. That wouldn't be life. It's not human life. So we must live longer and longer in this bland, pasteurized, round-edged, rubber-foamed reality that we're creating for ourselves, in which we are increasingly going mad.
Yeah.
We're going, and we watch that film Nightclub, which is based on a novel by Chuck Palahniuk. It's an absolutely a very profound development of that thing, where you've all these men sitting in cubicles in offices going insane. It's not clinical insanity. It won't ever probably be diagnosed, but they are not well. Millions of people are not well. And you see, is how do you address that? I found, for instance, in school even that, for instance, debating was very good for boys. Not very good for girls, but it was very good for boys in that what some people forget is debating is an intellectual contact sport. It's a duel. And boys get that very quickly, and they enjoy baiting each other around the room in a way that won't get them suspended from school. You know, they quickly cotton on to that. It was amazing to see them start to enjoy that. And another thing, and this latches into what you're saying, is that the tremendous need for male education in taking a hammering, in how to take a beating. Yeah. Now, women are emotionally, I think, in many ways, far sturdier than men, because women suffer more with their bodies from an early age. As one woman friend to me said, you know, all being equal, you get away with murder. She said, we're poked, pulled, you know, scrutinized. She said, we have to put up with this crap from an early age. Then you get into childbearing and all the rest of it. And she said, men, you know, you can hear them roaring in Cork like if they have a cold. You know, probably because we're not used to it, you see. We're not used to that suffering. We're not used to that humiliation. We're not used to being pulled and probed and you know, just generally annoyed like that. And I think the way men learn that is through taking a hammering. The way, you know, I mean, if a mother sees her little boy, at least, well, some mothers, some GA mothers are terrifying, okay, but generally, if a mother sees her little boy with blood running down his face, she loses it, like, nearly. That's not because there's anything wrong with her. That's the maternal instinct, thank God for it, okay? And she'll mortify him by trying to clean his face, but sure, he's proud of what's running down his face.
It's funny you're saying all that, because I've been really musing over that recently. And you said at the outset, you know, we're always in danger of getting slated because everything has to be so binary and people can't cope with this nuance and looking at the differences between men and women. But I'm fascinated by it. Now, when I was younger, like I was doing engineering and into ladies football, and, you know, always sort of complaining that we didn't have enough exposure, enough experiences. And so I'm sort of not teetering into feminism, but obviously there's that balance between giving girls the opportunities, but now it's gone so far as to demasculate and take away opportunities from men. Yeah. And I think what you're saying about the sport's so interesting, because as a mother now, my son isn't, you know, I watched my son in competition the other day, and I was, oh my gosh, I was through the ringer as a mother watching it. But his father was like, he became a man today. And it was a completely different
yes.
You know, my husband and I witnessed something totally different. I was traumatized thinking my son was suffering, and my husband was absolutely exhilarating in the fact that my son overcame adversity and became a man. And I think Jordan Peterson makes fantastic. He did an episode about this, about the difference between and the danger of women mothering society in various high positions. We want to, like you say, eradicate risk, eradicate injury. We want to home, and that's a beautiful aspect to who we are. But if we're in positions of power, then we'll never allow the reality of war and battle and all of those things that need to happen in order for the human soul to flourish, particularly the male soul. And he talked about the Pieta and about how a woman's greatest sacrifice is to give her son to the world and to allow him to be damaged and to be like Our Lady gave Jesus, allow him to suffer at the hands of the world. But the other extreme to that is that she will devour him if she doesn't. She will devour her child by not allowing him to go out and do what he's called to do. And I think these are brilliant discussions to have, because I'm so, as I get older and as I raise children, I'm so fascinated by the difference. And I think we don't talk enough about the realities. Yeah, there's stereotypes. And yes, there's exceptions to rules, but there are certainly so many traits that are inherent to God's creation of the difference between male and female.
Yes. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And again, I saw it quite often in school. So we have to, I mean, all right, there are no wolves to be killed. Generally, okay, well, I may be speaking too soon, but in general, in the modern world, war is very much contained. It has never gone away, by the way, but it is very much contained to certain areas. We have to work out how a man will be a man in this post-industrial age. It's a huge challenge. It's not the end of the world. But it's dangerous. It's dangerous if we run from the challenge, and it's dangerous if we continue with this obsession with everything having to be 100% safe. Life is a contact sport. And remember, you know, nobody gets out alive out of this. And but again, we've become so brilliant even at that. Now, I mean, we lost our mother lately, and we were grateful for our wonderful local undertaker and for, you know, the way in which everything was dealt with. But there's a part of me that's always a little bit uneasy about it, in that I can't help wondering where the old peasantry from which I'm descending, who got themselves blind drunk and nearly ended up insensible in the graveyard from keening and drinking and fighting, did they not have a point? I just, yeah, you see, I wonder, we're managing all the time. Nobody must be too upset, or at least too upset. You can be a little upset, but not too upset. You know, nobody. Oh, I don't know.
I see what you're getting at, but it's that sanitization. Like, we're not allowed to feel the extremes. It's like we talk about the sport. You're not allowed to feel the extreme of a high because there's an associated, somebody's lost, there's an extreme of a low. But
that's right.
We can't, like you say, we're all going to go insane if we're living in the middle. And, you know, taking it back to our theme of men, I do think they are suffering. Well, I could say that we're suffering in different ways, but I do think we did a whole month on women and the dignity of women before this series, and I do think women have a large role to play in this, in trying to raise up the dignity of man again, and in some ways submitting. You know, that there's that scripture piece that some women seem to absolutely abhor, but I have found a liberation. And as I said, I'm a very independent woman. You ask my husband, I'm not easy to live with. But I have found a real liberation at the times when I have submitted to him and his authority and allowed him to lead and kept my mouth silent, even if decisions were wrong, and allowed him to grow in his stature as the spiritual and physical, you know, and financial head of the family. So I do think we have a role to play in allowing men to be men. Yeah, and I think, and if you look at all the old literature, I've just read Jane Austen's Persuasion. Like, we actually are. It's a romantic notion. Women want that. They want these men. You know, it's a lie to say that we don't. I think it's a lie.
Of course they do. Sure, any psychologist would tell you that women are attracted to bad boys. Yeah. Because bad boys are often their courage and their worldly wise. They exhibit that mastery of the world. They show that mastery of the world. It's a deep biological reaction to, you know, it is no shame to the woman at all. She's attracted to that. That comes from a time when life was genuinely quite terrifying. So if a woman had any sense, she went looking for a man who in his area would be competent. Otherwise, they'd all die, you know? And I would question as well nowadays whether men and women even know how to treat each other anymore.
Yeah.
You know, whether they're as skilled and emotionally intelligent as they used to be. Women, when I hear a woman pull her husband up, she might be a very clever woman. She may well be cleverer than her husband. There's no law against it. But she pulls her husband up in public. I always think, well, maybe you're not quite as clever as I thought, because women used to know how to handle men. And you won't, you will not get a man on side doing that to them. Men can't handle that. You can't down them like that in public. Now, women used to know how to defer in public, and they'd murder him when they got the door shut. They wouldn't give him time to open his mouth in his defense, as I think it's the novelist Trollope observed, you know, and that's in the Victorian age. Women were highly skilled at managing the sexual difference. So I think what I'm proposing, right now, this is going to sound correct, okay? But what I'm proposing is that in the absence maybe of hunting to be done and gathering to be done and all the rest of it, I don't know where we're going there. But in the absence of all that, I would suggest that men and women settle for, and it's not nothing, it's very significant, their marriages being, I need to elaborate on this now, their marriages being a state of positive warfare. Men need to be men in their marriage. I see most men ending up simply they're kind of a clone of their wife. They're sort of, not clone isn't the right word. They end up a puppet because they don't want to be toxic in their masculinity. They're afraid to sound abusive, and they end up a puppet. And the trouble is the wife is deprived then because she ends up with a man who doesn't stand up to her. Does this make any sense to you?
It's brilliant. This is the kind of stuff I think they should be doing in pre-marriage courses, to be honest.
I agree with you. I agree
they would
with
be
you.
like, have this out, because you see, everyone is suffering because, you know, as I said, I've often looked at my own marriage, like, as well, you know, me coming up through this sort of feminine dominating, you know, area, and my poor husband, and us trying to work this out. He's a very strong personality too, but it's like you say, this is the kind of stuff that needs to be talked through. Positive warfare. And
I heard it put really well years ago in America, where I was idly sweet, you know, these endless stations in America before everyone went online, you know. It was heady stuff for a young Irish lad who was used to just a handful of stations. You might have a few hundred stations. And I was absolutely entranced. This is a way back now, by the Protestant pastors, who were some of them probably were tricky enough, but some of them were magnificent apostles, like, and communicators. And I remember he was one African-American minister, oh my goodness, he was a magnificent orator and preacher. But he said, there are some of you down there, he said, in you think you got married, he said, you know, to just be, how did he put it, just be cozy together. He said, you got married to drive each other mad. Iron sharpeneth iron. And he quoted the scriptures. And I said, that guy gets it. I said, he's right. Initially, I was repelled. And then I said, the guy is right. He said, male and female, they marry to drive each other crazy. And out of that, because it's a very controlled warfare, out of that comes the most magnificent creativity.
Yeah.
I mean, a tremendous complementarity that can't be achieved by just one side giving in to the other. You know, the man must bang the table and shout that he's the boss. The woman, subtle, irrespective of intellectual ability. She may be far more intellectual than he is, but her bias towards subtlety, towards agreeableness, towards making this work, looking at the long picture and the long road, and she comes with her weapons, and the bell rings and the two of them go at it. And out of that may come the most magnificent family life.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree.
Sometimes I'd say if you lit a match, you'd flatten the parish. But
I love the way you're expressing. That's why I wanted you on today, and you'd be so much fun. But like, and then I know we're sort of digressing into marriage a little bit from just the Sodry Men's theme, but I just wanted to tie on to what you're saying, because again, I do watch Jordan Peterson, and he talks about the chain together when now, because their divorce is such an option, men aren't and women aren't hammering these things out because they're not chained together anymore. He refers to the fact that you're chained together means you have no other option but to work through and wrestle and have that war. People are now giving up because they don't want the war. And it's back again to what you were talking about, men needing to debate. I think society in general needs to debate and fight a lot more often than it's doing. We're so like one-dimensional. We're so quick tags, Twitter, 20 characters or whatever you're allowed, and no one actually will have a full-on Barney, a full-on conversation and hammer things out. And that's where, like you say, the beauty comes, the spark comes, the life comes.
Yeah.
And it is endemic in society. It's such a shame. We've so many things to battle against. There's so many undercurrents with regard to, I've said, work, communication, education is failing us. And then all of the, everything, the rug has been pulled from under us. But I know we're heading towards the end of this conversation, although I could talk to you for hours. But I always said I would love to bring in the hope. And we haven't talked much about sort of where the church stands in all of this. I'd love you to sort of reflect for men and for marriage and for society, what the church gives men in terms of an ideal, in terms of this Christ-like devotion and sacrifice and something to aim for.
I would point out to men that in Christianity, as in, and this is worth listening to, as in most of the primitive tribes, it is the ability to endure in a man which is revered more than his ability to inflict. It is his sacrificial propensity, his sacrificial suitability, his ability to suffer without crying out. And that there is a path there. It's obscure. Okay, it's going to take work, it's going to take discussion. There is a path there for men to discover their masculinity in the modern age, and crucially through their Christian faith, because the model in this is our Lord Jesus Christ, who is the ultimate sacrifice that the ancient human sacrificing peoples only dreamt of. Because what they were doing in human sacrifice was an attempt to propitiate the deity with the most exquisite thing they could offer, which was a human being in full health and in the glory of their relative youth. Okay? And our Lord Jesus Christ is God sacrificed back to God. It is the greatest sacrificial material that was ever produced. And he is the template. There's nothing weak about this. Anyone who thinks this is weak knows nothing about life. There's nothing weak about this. I mean, most people who are good at inflicting pain are psychopaths, and they don't count because there's something wrong with them. There's a kink in them. They're not right in the head. Actually, it's very difficult in war to get soldiers to start killing each other. It only becomes habitual after a while. That's notoriously true. I say notorious because in war, like, that can be a huge problem. The first battle could be the last one, like. And this thing of endurance is huge for men. And I wonder whether down the line there won't be, well, Gandhi made use of it, and contrary to what people think, Gandhi was not a pacifist. Gandhi made use of it, which is simply exposing yourself to taking a beating, either from the opposition or from police, in order to make a moral point. And that there may be an issue there with regard to the future form that protests against abortion will take. Because I'm telling you, this obsession we have with safety has led us into murder. We are murdering. This is the insane paradox we have entered. We are murdering to prevent murder. We are killing to prevent killing. In order to be safe, we're making others profoundly unsafe. The womb isn't safe, so that those who are alive and can defend themselves and are articulate can be safe. This is insane.
Mhm.
And it's done through, I mean, the Greeks would have died laughing at us. You know, the whole myth of Prometheus, everything, stealing fire from the gods. I think, wasn't that what he did? And then he was punished forever afterwards. They would have died laughing at it. They'd have said, oh, there's more of it. You know, they want to be safe. They want to be like God. They want to be God.
Yeah.
They want to be God. But we're not God. We shall be like him because we shall see him as he really is, as the scriptures tell us, but not yet. We're not God. The Ukraine is quite clear we're not God. In Libya, it's clear we're not God. Okay. In Iraq, it's very clear. And Syria, and jeepers, you could keep going. It's very clear we're not God. Okay. But we do hanker to be like him. This is the path. This is the way. And its name is Jesus Christ.
Love it. Just want to pause there. But so what concrete, like if you have young men saying, you know, we see them flocking towards Jordan Peterson and flocking, you know, towards these sort of male commentators or social media and whatever else. What would you concretely offer to a young man who wants that vision for life and to follow Christ? What can they do right now? What could they do if they saw?
What they can do right now is stop being used as sexual partners and stop being used as basically animated sex aids. They can be men and insist that the relationships they develop are human and genuine and authentic. They can refuse, they can start to defer their satisfaction, and just as they do when they save with the bank or post office. Okay, you start to invest in your future happiness by learning how to please and protect and look after and compliment one woman. One. Because one woman should be enough for any sane man. Okay? No, but I mean, you know, how many divorces do you want? You know? Yeah. Should be this madness going on. And again, it's this endless happiness. But the more you go at that, the more happiness slips through your fingers. Yep. You must sacrifice for all of this. And so I would say to those young men, prepare yourselves for sacrificial life, for the beautiful life, for the life of the warrior, the life of the sacrifice, the life of the life protector and giver. Okay, learn how to live with a woman. But I'm not saying live before marriage with a woman in the sense of domestic arrangements, but learn how to. And see, this is another thing. You have couples living together for years and they still don't know each other when they marry. Mm-hmm. And those marriages can often break up. This is madness stuff. And it's leading to incredible blandness and incredible superficiality. And it's disastrous when it comes up against the realities of life, the iceberg field that is life. Yeah. Okay, so I would say that to young men is decide now that you are going to be a man of virtue, a serious man. Stop smiling so much. Stop running around like a grinning idiot. Okay, become a serious man, a man of reflection, a man of education, because society is spending a fortune giving you an education. Make some use of it. Okay, think about things, read good books, watch good films, watch serious films. Even films don't agree with Catholicism, but at least they're serious. At least they're not, you know, just superficial nonsense. And dress up more. No, honest to God, I think it was Father Vincent Toomey, I remember talking about it once. We tend to forget how primitive that is. It's good for you. It's not just women, it's for men too. We need to dress up. It's a ritual, almost liturgical thing. It's you're stepping out and showing a bit of leg. God forgive me. You know what I mean, though? I mean, you're standing in front of the world and you're saying, this is me. You know? And it's a very beautiful thing. It can lead to pride and silliness, but it doesn't have to. I would say start becoming the man that you are meant to be. You know, a man with a sense of his own dignity, his own worth, comfortable in your skin, and above all, a man who knows that he is the heir to a fortune, which you are, because you are an heir to the kingdom of our Lord Jesus Christ. So I would say to young men, dignity, you know, and don't let the girl make all the going in relationships. I mean, the last thing you want is to be some boor and brute who just gets his own way in everything. That's not a gentleman. No. I would say you want to go looking then this young man who's trying to be himself. You want to go looking for a young woman who's similarly minded, who can stand before the world, who is entering into her womanhood. So the two of you together are going to, you're going to make trouble. You're going to do serious things in the world.
In the best way.
Yeah, there's too much cheap living, too much affordable emotion, too much Irish sentimental out plumos and guff. Yeah, not enough love. Not enough love.
You'll never get anything softly coded with you, Father. That's just brilliant. And it's actually really hardcore, but it's actually so simple as well.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, it's the simple things, like make your bed, have a bit of dignity about yourself. You know, it is so simple. So there you go. That's straight from the horse's mouth, folks, from Father Brendan. That's telling it like it is. Couldn't beat it.
All I need to do now is put it into practice myself.
Oh,
be away
I know.
well,
that is it. We can talk the good talk, but yeah, it's walking the walk. But no, that was brilliant, Father. As I said, I could talk to you for another hour, but it's just so much to reflect on, and I'm really delighted that you ended with such a passionate plea and put everything into the context of our faith, and of our dignity of who we are, and that is the foundation point, really. Yeah. Because unless we know who we are, we don't know who we can be and what our potential is. So, and yes, I mean, we could talk all day about the challenges to all of that, but I think we've ended on a sense of hope, and I hope you've enjoyed the conversation as much as I have.
I have indeed. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I really have. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, to all our viewers, I hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, please like and please share it with all of your friends, and join us again next week as we continue on this theme. But that's it for today. So thank you so much to Father Brendan. Join us next week. Patrick McChrystal will be on the show, and we'll continue, as I said, on the theme of men called to greatness. We've got the rallying cry now. We've just got to continue it. So that's it for today. Please remember that we at HLI Ireland are working and praying for an Ireland where God is first, life is sacred, and the family is cherished. Until next time, God bless.